All right, everybody. You are now tuned in to the Cipher, the Hyper, the Humbler podcast. I'm your host, J. James, and I'm here with a special guest by the name of Rodney Block, a superior musician out here from my city, Little Rock. Where you from? You from here? Or you just
I'm from Arkansas. I'm from a small town in Arkansas, southeast Arkansas, Dumas.
okay?
Uh, I grew up and went to college in Monticello, so I'm a country boy, and I've been in the Little Rock metro area for about the last 20 years.
Okay, wow. Okay. And you know, I know from Tony and Joel that you've been performing for an incredibly long time too out here. Right.
Yeah, yeah, we stay pretty busy. It's a blessing. That's everything from club gigs to corporate events, festivals, special events, anniversaries. We pretty much have played every type of gig, so it's cool.
hmm Yeah, from everybody that I talk to, you're almost like one of the hardest working musicians out of here, out the city.
We
So, say
hustle.
what? Go ahead. I couldn't hear you at first.
I said we do hustle. We stay busy, and if we can make it work, we'll make it work. Sometimes we may have three up to four gigs in one day. We leave one and we'll go do the next one. So it's a lot of fun, and I think I like the variety of events that we do.
Hmm
It could be at the in the club, and
hmm
then be at the governor's mansion. It
Right,
doesn't. It's just a lot of fun, and the variety of events that we get a chance to do keeps it exciting and fun.
man. Up to four shows a day.
Yeah,
Is that like the most you've ever done in a day, or?
I think the most I've ever done in one day was five gigs, and I
Okay.
started out early in the morning and just went from one event to the next event. So it's a lot. I play the trumpet, so by
Okay.
the end of this one, my lips were gone, and
Right, and your lungs too, I guess.
yeah, but like I said, it's the journey, it's the variety of the events, the different types of events, and it's a lot of fun, and people appreciate what we do, so that makes it not feel like work. It is
Right.
definitely that I enjoy. I just enjoy playing.
It's a beauty to get to do what you love every day, that's for sure. And to get money for it at the same time, right?
Sure.
So what's a typical day in the life of Rodney Block look like with this busy
Oh man,
schedule?
you know what? It's most of my music stuff happens, Thursday through Saturday.
Okay.
So prior to that, we have rehearsals. We go over the schedule for the week. What events we have, where do we need to be, what time we need to set up, what's the attire. Some events are black tie events. Some events are more casual. Um, uh, this is the music for the week, and we rehearse the music, and then on game day, as we call it,
Right.
um, you know what, we show up at the appointed time to kind of set up,
hmm
uh, get sound check in, get a good warm up in, because if you get a great, like an athlete, playing the trumpet or playing instruments, you're using your muscles, so
hmm
you should warm up before you even start a gig, because if you don't warm up, it makes it very challenging to play a 2 hour or a 3 hour gig, because
Right.
you did not warm up. So, and then when it's time for showtime, is all the preparation you've done on the front end, the days leading up is just like automatic. You just go
hmm
in and you have fun. Me as a person, I try to rehearse on my own, uh,
hmm hmm
feel and the spirit of the music, since I'm going to be playing it later in the weekend, and things on my own. So it's definitely preparation, practice time,
hmm
and then as a unit or an ensemble. we're getting together, practicing the music so we can be ready for the weekend. And then when it's showtime, game time,
Yeah.
we dress the part, and then we're ready to jam because we've done all that stuff on the front end. So it's a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And like you said, 2 3 hours. I can imagine that takes incredible stamina and the amount of time that it must take in terms of preparation and doing your rehearsal. I definitely wanted to shed light on that because I feel
Mhm.
like most people, especially in the audience, even people who are aspiring artists, they don't know or really recognize how much it really takes to be able to get up there and do how long you perform, and then to say that you're doing it maybe 2 3 4 times a day. Very important to shed light on that side of it.
Yes, yes. It's a lot of preparation, and being an artist, being a musician. There's another part to that. I think people don't really realize. You're playing music, you're providing, this atmosphere, but
Hmm.
at the same time, the artist himself is really putting his soul out there on the stage for people to hear. And sometimes that's a very hard thing to do, to get up in front of people, get up in front of your peers, and put it out there, uh,
Hmm.
and hoping that you're connecting with the audience, hoping that they're hearing what you have to say. And so that's a kind of another wrinkle or another aspect of being a creative or an artist or a musician, is that you prepare, you learn this stuff, and then you get on the stage in front of people,
Hmm.
uh, and hoping that they can, there's some type of connection between the artist and the audience. Uh,
Right.
that's a very real thing. That's a very uh, interesting aspect that I think some people who are not in that space, they don't
Yeah.
think about.
Yeah, I mean, when you say that, I think of how comedians kind of have to react and read the audience. Sometimes you have this set that you came in there, you thought you were so funny, and the first few jokes that you thought were gonna land doesn't really land, and you might have to pivot, or do you keep going with the show how you do it and switch up? So, how do you as a musician kind of react to those types of discrepancies?
Well, I'm glad you brought that point. That's exactly what we do. I call it calling an audible. Like in
Right.
football, you have a play that you're going to go with, but because of what the defense is doing, you say, hey, let's change this play.
Hmm.
And we do a lot of that. You have to read the crowd. Comedians, musicians, DJs, they have this. You got to be able to look at your group, and if something is not working, you got to think quick on your feet. Well, how can I get this audience engaged? So that's something that happens all the time. I used to go strictly by a set list
Hmm.
early, but then I learned that sometimes the set list, the crowd is not filling, and you
Right.
have to make a change. So
Right.
I have a list of songs, and we're going to choose our show from this list, but there's no order. We're going to kind of go with the vibe and the flow of the crowd, because you want to be able to connect with them, and you want to be invested at a certain level. So comedians, that's a hard job to do.
Tell
Uh,
me. Yeah.
hard job to do. I think being a DJ, the DJ has so much power that I don't think they know. They have the ability to control the crowd. They
Hmm.
can crowd, but someone who's in tune with the crowd knows what songs to play, knows what songs not to play.
Right.
Uh, Thing in my arena when we're on stage, hey, this is the program we want to present, but if I'm looking at the audience, let's call an audible. Maybe
Yeah.
we change.
They look
And
tired. Let's slow it
yeah,
down a little bit or
exactly.
something like that.
Yeah, if you do my experience, if you do a lot of slow songs, you may lose them. So you may have to think outside the box. Okay, let me do something upbeat, or let me do something that's the crowd can participate in. So
Mhm.
uh, things you have to think about, and I don't think the someone that's outside this realm necessarily thinks about those factors when they see something.
Yeah, definitely a lot of nuance there, and I'm sure throughout all your years of experience out here, you've come through all different types of audiences. What I'd like to say or ask is, how would you describe the personality of the overall music scene out here in Arkansas?
You know what? I've been in it for the last 15, 20 years, and I can see it's kind of ebbed and flowed. Um, I think now amongst musicians, I think there's more of this kind of collaborative spirit. You know, this band is not opposed to doing a show with another band or saying, hey, lead singer of this band, hey, why don't you come over and do something with us? And then vice versa, I go do something with the other band. Or
And
even across.
so, was there a time where there was competitive nature, where there wasn't as much?
Yeah, I think so. I think early on, years back, I think there was this, mode of this is band A and we don't mess with band B, and
Hmm.
they're very competitive, but competition is not bad. Competition
Right,
is good. It kind of raises the level of everyone's talent, but I
right.
think competitive in regards to that you're not trying to be cool or have a uh, an open, kind of an open relationship where there's an exchange of ideas. And I don't think that existed a few years back, but
Hmm.
now I think people are recognizing. I can use for an example the On Call band. The On
Hmm.
Call, the R&B band in Little Rock and Pine Bluff, but I know all those singers, so it's not uncommon that some of the lead singers from that band be guesting on my show,
Right.
and we've done shows together where we've done music together, the unit. So it doesn't uh, diminish my brand and it doesn't diminish their brand. I think it just kind of brings us all together because we're all creatives, we're all musicians. There's enough space for everyone. And
Hmm.
even across genres, I've done some work with a country rockabilly band, and I've invited some of those members to come play on my show. So it's definitely about building bridges and building relationships.
Hmm.
I don't think that was, you know, existed or it wasn't as strong years back. But I think now, there's this collaborative spirit, this openness that we're all here, we're all musicians, we're all providing uh, a service for our city, and
Hmm.
we all can work uh, together. So I think uh, that part of the music scene has improved. We definitely need more venues. It seems like, every year there's a venue that's shutting down,
Oh
and
wow.
that just means that there's not a place for folks like me to perform and play music and then get new music out to the listeners. So I think we can improve as a city on creating those venues and creating those spaces where live music um can thrive. So,
Hmm.
uh, so that's but I think people are excited. And I think people are very excited about live music
Yeah.
uh, today. Before, people, were a very small group of people would go and pay $20 to hear a band. But
Right.
that's the norm now. If you want to hear a good band, you pay $20
Totally
and
right.
live music, and I think people are enjoying that, and I think young people are getting into this instrumentation and live music, and just like it was back in the day with our my aunts and uncles and my grandpa and grandma,
Right.
they live band. So
Okay. Yeah. I can see that, and it's I think it's needed because I've always looked at the city and kind of wondered, like, what's stagnating the growth and what's kind of preventing so many musicians and artists from not even outgrowing the city, being seen in other states and, building their fan base on a more national level, but at the same time, even being able to amass just enough of a following in this market alone, because there's plenty of people in this market that could sustain an artist or a musician's career. And so to hear that venues is one of the things that's missing, because I always thought that, maybe there's just not enough interest in going out to see live music out here anymore. Maybe there's a fear of safety or something around that nature. That's why people doesn't go out as much. But to hear that as many venues are being closed, as one of the catalysts, is that one of the only catalysts that you believe is the reason it's kind of stagnated some of our growth here?
Well, I think part of it, there has to be a buy-in from the city and the patrons. I was just thinking, if you go to New Orleans, New
Mm-hmm.
Orleans personality, they have a music personality. If you go to New Orleans, you can clearly think of jazz music, bounce music,
Mm-hmm.
Lane, Baby, Juvenile. You
Absolutely.
or Whit
No
Marsalis.
limit. Yeah.
Yes, no limit. You think of that person. If you go to Atlanta, Atlanta has a personality. New York has a personality. Um, L.A. has a personality. San Francisco,
Right.
even way Memphis, Tennessee has a distinct music personality.
Yeah.
And Little Rock is only 2 hours away. Little Rock has the same talent. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and I think there has to be a certain buy-in from people that, hey, we have something to offer. And when people come to Little Rock, Arkansas, they're
Right.
going to say, hey, we're going to get a chance to hear, the Rodney Block Collective,
Right.
or the Bijous, or the Salty Dogs, which is a blue rockabilly band,
Mm-hmm.
or the rap scene. Joker Beasy is on point. Lil Rock Obama is a
Yeah.
rapper, really
That's a
has.
dope name, Little Rock Obama.
So he has. So there's the talent is here. I
Mm-hmm.
think there be a buy-in from the folks that Little Rock has his own distinct personality in regards to music, and then with that buy-in, you're going to have the venues, or you're going to have a district or a corridor that when people come to Little Rock, they're going to say, hey, let's go to this district. There's going to be live music. If you can go to any district in those cities, Nashville, Memphis, you got Bill Street um, in Memphis. If you go to New Orleans, you got Frenchman Street. If you go to numerous places in St. Louis
Right.
or hey, they all have a district or a corridor that touts the personality, the music uh, personality of their city. And I
Yeah.
think Little Rock has the talent, and we can create. We need to just put on display that Little Rock sound, that Little Rock vibe.
Sounds
Just
like
like
we need our own signature street for the
we do.
music to be on. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be great. I just think about what Ninth Street was to look. Little Rock is what Beale Street is to Memphis. If you
Yeah.
think about the history and everything that happened on Ninth Street, what if 630 wasn't, put in that particular
Right.
location? Would Ninth Street be thriving just like a Memphis,
Mm.
or you can go to Charleston, um, South Carolina. You can go to different places that African Americans had their own district in, and
Mm.
it is really interesting. What if that
Yeah.
Ninth Street was never kind of broken up, and I think Little Rock would have had their own little space. Like you have Bourbon Street in New Orleans, you got Ninth Street in Little Rock, you got Beale Street in Memphis, and
Hmm.
So we definitely need to have some buy-in, and then with the buy-in is when those venues kind of will come back and open up. You know, um,
Mhm.
so that's just my take on it. That's
Yeah.
just my opinion, but
Well, I feel like I agree with you. You know, it's better late than never.
mhm,
For one thing, you know, what if we had it? But you know, it took us a little longer. But I think with the culture change of collaborative effort, for one
mhm,
thing, I
mhm,
think that is going to contribute greatly to developing a sound, which I think is somewhat already developed. You know, we're somewhat of a gumbo between the
mhm,
states that surround us, and that's
mhm,
a style of music that we've created. And as we collab and we work together, because that's another thing I've always thought we were missing, us
mhm,
working together as much to be able to create the type of momentum that's
mhm.
required to be able to span further, but also cementing a sound that can be branded for our
Yeah.
city. So I definitely agree with you 100%. I hadn't really thought of it like that, but that's why it's great to talk to somebody that knows it so well. Um, you did mention, before I go to the next thing, you did mention your band. What's the name of them again?
Well, I have a couple of bands.
Okay.
My main band is the Rodney Block Collective,
Okay.
and of my other band, which is the Rodney Block Collective, does a little bit of everything. We do smooth jazz, traditional jazz, uh, R&B, uh, hip hop, and then I have another band called Rodney Block and the Love Supreme, and
Okay.
that's more of kind of a younger, kind of hipper electric sound. We do more kind of uh, hip hop influenced music,
Mhm.
a little bit of these. So the Rodney Block Collective is the first band, and Rodney Block and the Love Supreme is the
Okay.
second.
Okay. And I hear one of them is like the Avengers or Voltron, whole bunch of stars on the squad.
Yeah, yeah. It's uh, yeah, it's kind of like Avengers or Super Friends type.
Yeah.
It really is that way because all the members that play in both of those groups are they're independent contractors. They play not only for me, but they play for other folks as well. They're very good. Um, um, I've been fortunate to have some really good musicians. Dre Franklin that plays keys, Corey Harris. That plays bass. Jonathan Burks, who's from Chicago, plays drums. Bijou is my go-to vocalist.
Mhm.
Uh, uh, Roosevelt Harris is another fine vocalist, and that's kind of the present iteration of the Rodney Block Collective. But in the past, uh, your relative Joe Crutcher, phenomenal
Yeah.
bass player, played for me for years. Deshaun Lampkin, who lives in Houston now, played bass for me as well. Wayne Smart plays drums in the Love Supreme. Khalil Tyus plays bass in the Love Supreme, and Will Kendrick plays keys in the Love Supreme. And all those musicians are very good, past and present, all good. So I've been very fortunate to have uh, some solid and stellar um, people around me.
Okay. Okay. And you play the trombone or the?
I play the trumpet.
Okay, the trumpet. The trumpet. And is that the only instrument that you play?
It's interesting because I can play trombone.
Yeah.
I have a brother that plays trombone. His name is Tyrone, and he plays. He's actually a band director in the Texas schools and college, band director for a college in Texas, and he also plays in the Duke Ellington Orchestra. So he's a really good musician. I tell everybody he's the real musician in the family because he went to school for it, has a doctorate in it, but I can pretty much play all the brass instruments with
Hmm.
the French horn, but trombone, tuba, baritone, trumpet. So if it's brass and it has some buttons on it, I
Yeah,
play it. French horn is a little bit difficult, uh, but um, but so when you learn one, you can kind
yeah.
of play. Oh,
I figured as much. I being from the South myself and seeing some of the Black University bands battle, and even
yeah,
growing up watching Joel do his thing. I definitely have a love, and I do hip hop myself as a producer and all that. But when I get into the different instruments that I like to compose with at times, I have to kind of try to stay away purposely from brass because
uh-huh,
I've got such an affinity for it. And I just
yeah.
wanted to ask you, like, what is it about the brass that you're so attracted to that made that the thing that you wanted to really be on?
Yeah, it's interesting. I have an interesting story. The trumpet, the reason I started playing trumpet is I have an older brother, and he was a grade ahead of me,
Hmm.
and he started on trumpet. Well, he didn't dig it as much, so my parents had bought this trumpet. So when it was my turn to be in the band, my mom and dad said, "Well, if you're going to be in the band, if you want to be in the band, you got to play your brother's old trumpet." And I was completely fine with that. And the trumpet is just like, you know, you always hear references when I was growing up. When you're in church, you always heard a reference to Gabriel blowing the trumpet,
Hmm.
or always heard about Louis Armstrong, always heard about Miles Davis. And for some reason, that just kind of appealed to me. And I tell you the story, and it probably cemented why I always liked the trumpet, and I've stuck with the trumpet. My first year in beginner band, you go through the whole school year, you're learning the fundamentals, you're learning how to play the C scale, you're learning how to read music. So I went through a whole school year of that. And in the summer, you have the opportunity to go to band camp, you know, and band camp, the camp that we went to was at Henderson State University in Arkadelphia, Arkansas. So in the month of June, you load up on a bus, you pack your suitcase, and you're going to this college campus with other kids for band camp. Never been away from home in my life. So this was all new to me.
Hmm.
So I'm there, you get checked in, I'm on a college campus, and part of the registration for band camp, you have to audition to see what band you're going to be placed
Okay.
in. So you had about 1,000 kids from all over Arkansas and
Wow.
Texas, and you had to audition. So based on your audition, you were placed in one of 10 bands. First band was always the best kids. They played the best. Uh, and 10th band was the worst kids as well. So you had 1 through 10. So I remember going into the auditioning room, and there was a African American gentleman there. He must have been the band director, and so he's been listening to trumpet players all day audition. So I'll walk in, and he's looking at the score sheet, and he reads my name. He says, "So you're Rodney Block, you know?" And I say, "Yes, sir." And he says, "So you're going to play a little trumpet today?" And I say, "Yes, sir." And he pauses. He says, "You look like a trumpet player." I I proceed to play my audition. I sucked. I ended up, I think, third chair, ninth band.
Yeah.
Third chair, eighth band. I can't remember. I think it was
Okay.
eighth band. And so I wasn't very good. But you know what? But that has stuck with me all my life.
You look
And
like a trumpet player.
trumpet player,
Yeah.
and that has stuck with me all my life. And when I was in college, when Marcellus came to the University of Arkansas at Monticello,
Hmm.
and concert, and I just thought he was the coolest guy ever seen
Hmm.
playing. well. And then a few years after that, the movie Mo Better Blues comes out.
Okay.
Denzel Washington plays, it's a Spike Lee movie. Denzel Washington plays the part of a trumpet player, Bleak
Yeah.
Gillingham character. And so different things like that over the course of my life has just made me excited about
Yeah.
playing the trumpet and hearing how it could be forceful, it could be commanding, but it's also a very romantic horn as well. So it's very versatile.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
trumpet, and that's kind of how I kind of claimed this family of being in the brass families, but specifically playing the trumpet.
Yeah, yeah, well, that's some big shoes to fill. Gabriel and Miles Davis. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But that we spoke a lot about your contributions to your band and what you've done on the live performance scene. But I hear that you've got a project and actually a few projects that you've already done, which I would like to know how many projects you've done, but also talk a little bit about this new upcoming project that you have.
Okay, great, great. Well, I have a new record that's gonna actually drop next week
Okay.
on Good Friday. My birthday is April 9th, and April 9th is a Sunday, which is Easter Sunday. So I have a new album that's called Percival Jenkins,
Okay.
and kind of if you've ever seen the movie Idlewild with Big Boy and
Okay.
Andre 3000, uh, Andre 3000's character was named Percival Jenkins, and I really identified with that character because he was
Okay.
nerdy, loved his music, and he loved playing music. So I kind of uh, identified with that character. So that's my alter ego, Percival Jenkins.
Okay.
So the name of the new EP that's coming out Good Friday of next month is called Percival Jenkins, and it has a single. It has a quite a few singles on it because I was releasing music once a year during the COVID time.
Mhm.
So it took me 3 years to put the EP together, but but I did release music every year.
Mhm.
Newest record is called "Who Do You Love," and it
Okay.
features Deshaun Roosevelt Harris doing the vocals. It's
All
an
right.
Afro vibe.
All right.
It's
I like that a lot.
getting a lot of airplay locally and internationally and nationally as well.
Okay.
So there's a remix that's on the EP that folks will get a chance to hear that features a rapper that goes by the name of Theme Music, and
Okay.
our lovely Bijou is on the remix as well. So it's very eclectic, but it's cool,
Mhm.
smooth as smooth R&B. Like I said, it's got a little Afro beat on it. It's got some Prince like funk on it. It's a very good album, and people will able to download it Good Friday weekend. And if folks want to order a physical copy, I'm doing a run of 100, and I'm going to sign all 100. So if people want a personal copy of the new album, Percival Jenkins, they can get that in the next coming weeks.
Yeah, that's exciting. That's real exciting. Like I said, I got to hear most recent single. I think you said "Who Do You Love."
Yeah.
Definitely like that track. Definitely like the fact that you're incorporating the Afro beat. Um, you said the EP is or the album is a collection of some of the singles that you dropped throughout the pandemic.
So in 2020, uh, my goal was to put out another album,
Hmm.
but of course the pandemic
Right.
uh, impacted that. So I would release a song every year.
Right.
So the single in 2020 called "How Do I Get to the Future Without You," which is
Hmm.
on this EP. Um, I made us a mixtape kind of love song gosh, uh, there's another track called Why I Love You that features Deshaun Harris. It's a very nice record. So every year I've been putting out music. So it's all going on an album now.
Yeah.
So people can find those songs on one album. But it's a fun album. I think people will enjoy it, and it's just it's just music that I love to play.
So to me, that sounds like, when I come up with projects, I sometimes I have a vision for what I want it to sound, what sound like sonically, lyrically, what I might want to put into it. Then other times it's just I'm just making music,
Yeah.
single after single, and then I put them together, whatever fits right. How did
hmm
this one come together? Like I know you were dropping singles. Did you have a template of something that you wanted sonically to be delivered, or was it just kind of spontaneous?
You know what? Well, the album concept was always there. It was Percival Jenkins. I That goes back to 2019,
Mm,
2020. So I just wanted to. I just wanted something that people could connect with, as far as music,
mm,
something that you can listen to, and then your grandmother can listen to, but
right.
but it's still me, and it's still cool. The Who Do You Love is an Afrobeat song, but I think it's very relatable
Yeah.
across the board. I think anybody can listen to that song and enjoy it. So, but it's still me. It's still my vibe is the best way I can say it. So, and to me, it's still Percival Jenkins, because Percival Jenkins is very eclectic,
Right.
and uh, he doesn't necessarily uh, stay inside the lines. He colors outside the lines. So that was the theme. That's what I wanted when I was coming up with music. I wanted something that was relatable, but it's still
Hmm.
me. People can listen to it anywhere. My mother can listen to this album. I think find a connection to it. So
So take me a little bit through like the process for you, because you play trumpet, but you're not playing the bass, the drums. Do you have your band in there? Are you writing for them? Do you guys collaboratively kind of, you tell them what you just told me and you guys kind of feel where you want to go from there? How does that kind of work?
you know what is that's great. I have an idea of what I want things to sound like. So of course I've worked with a few different producers, and what I like to do is give them a sample
Hmm.
for. So one of my favorite trumpet players, Roy Hargrove. Roy Hargrove is a great horn player, and I said, "This is a song." I said, "Listen to this track," and I said, "This is the vibe that I want." So you can use this as inspiration, and we kind of go at it from there. I just, in the beginning, I just want a nice uh, pad, as you say, some nice scenery that's down, and then the melody uh, comes after I can hear what that pad is and how that bass line is going. And if I don't like the bass line, I said, can you change it? Get maybe a different pop, or maybe I want the bass line to walk more, or maybe I want simplicity. I want it to be less. So just kind of it's a collaborative effort. And then once that kind of baseline chord structure is down, that I like, and then I can hear the melody, and then the melody kind of comes after that pad is kind of placed,
Yeah.
and that the ability to kind of create melody, and then it kind of goes from there. For the Who Do You Love record, Deshaun Harris actually wrote that song, and but it was after we had this discussion. I said, "Hey, listen to. I want to incorporate the vocal and the instruments." I said, "Listen to Boney James and Raheem Devon. or
Okay.
listen to Eric Roberson and Najee. These are instrumentalists hanging out with vocalists, but they're creating something really nice. Layla Hathaway and Robert Glasper, uh, or Robert Glasper and her. You know, they're or Lettucey. There is where the vocalist meets the instrumentalist, and they're creating something really nice. So
Yeah.
uh, that's how "Who Do You Love" actually came about. I say, hey, listen to this, and I said, let's create a type of vibe.
Yeah.
Not only instrumentalists, musicians would get into, but like your uh, someone that just loves soul music or neo soul music. So
Yeah.
that's kind of part of the process on some the different tracks, and then some, you know, is just like, you know, yeah, I like this. Give me something. You know, I hear something, and I say, hey, I want this type of vibe, and you just kind of it's just kind of trial and error, and there's a lot of emailing back. No, I don't
Yeah.
like. I like this. Can you take that out? You know what?
Yeah.
We need a bridge to this record. There's no bridge. We need to. So it's very collaborative, but uh, but once that template or once that pad is established, it kind of gives me freedom to create nice melodies and horn lines.
Talk about a little bit about, because you say emails, right? And I've got to imagine you've been around since the time where making music simply through telling somebody through an email or a text was much more difficult than it
Yeah.
is today. Talk a little bit about, some of the positives of technology in that way when it comes to collaborating and making music in this way, and some of the negatives that have come with it.
You know, I think it's great. I mean, just what we're doing today, you know,
Right.
we don't necessarily have to be in the same room to get the job done. I think musically it's great, especially when you have someone that lives maybe 800 miles or 1,000 miles away. Um, on my I had an album called Eyes Haven't Seen, Ears Haven't Heard, and great musician. He's from Little Rock. His name is Merlon Divine. He's a
Mhm.
saxophone, incredible. He lives in Baltimore, but this guy is incredible,
Right.
and I wanted him on my record, so I called him and he's agreed. So we just emailed him the tracks and he recorded it in his studio, and he did a few takes, took what we thought was best and fit with the record, and it turned out to be, you know, I think one of the best records I've ever made.
Right.
But the fact that technology allowed us to do that, and then if any edits you need to make, and I think that's the other part is now you can go, you know, this, you can go into a recording studio, and I could play a line. And instead of having to go back and punch it in again, and so you know what, I was a little flat right there. That
Right.
melody, is it called Melodyne?
Yeah, Melody. Yeah.
Man, you can go in and change. I'm a little flat. I'm not
Man.
flat, or I played a completely wrong note, but everything else was perfect. You can either take the note out or move the note to where where it's correct. So
Yes.
I think those aspects are great because you don't have to necessarily be present and in the studio to do the job. Now, that doesn't replace, uh, you know, when people say, "Well, I have horns plugged in. I have a synthesized horn. I have horn plug in." There's nothing like a live
Fact.
trumpet. But
I can be the first to attest to it.
yeah,
I've
yeah,
searched for a decade for
yeah,
the
yeah.
perfect VST. It does not exist.
It doesn't replace live. And you know, the part of that is because when you have a live musician that's there in the studio and surrounded by other musicians, there's this energy that's created, that's exchanged,
Yeah.
that you're able to capture in recording that you can't do when you're by yourself, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's the only drawback. I think um, there's validity in to being there if you can, and being around musicians if you can, to kind of create that, capture that energy and that spirit that's in that space, because that goes through your horn, as Wynton Marsalis described it best when he was describing King Oliver, um, and Louis Armstrong. He says they have a light in their horn. There's
Mm.
like spirit, a light,
Yeah.
and I think when you're in a live setting, you're able to capture that
Mm.
sound, and
Yeah.
it's not the same when you're by yourself,
Mm.
because exchange of there's an exchange of energy. Have you ever had a vocalist in your booth
Yeah.
and the vocalist
You
is singing?
feel the vibrations.
You, and then you, as being the producer, you say, "I need you to sing that again," and they can see you. I need you to do that again, but I need a little something. So that vocalist is looking at you. There's this exchange of energy in order to uh, for the vocalist to produce the sound that you're looking for. And you know,
Right.
it's kind of hard to do that when you're not in that
Right.
space. You know?
Right. So many nuances that could
Yeah,
be
yeah,
easily ironed over it within 5 minutes if you're live, but it might take two or three edits
yeah,
and sendbacks.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So there's from a production standpoint and being able to put music out, especially I mean, a lot of people have home recording studios. They can, I mean, there's someone who did a whole album off of Bandcamp. You know, I'm
Yeah.
saying,
Right.
so you're able to put music out and record music, which is great, and I think that technology is great when you can't be there, but it doesn't replace being there live and getting inspiration, and maybe someone giving you a different perspective. You played it like this, but why don't you play it like this?
Hmm.
You know, and that may be what's needed for that particular
Yeah.
passage to.
That might be what makes it a hit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, I hear that Quincy Jones and Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson did not want the violin strings part on the first part of Off the Wall. Is it Off the Wall? Is uh, maybe Off the Wall. Yeah. Well, that intro.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
So, but you know what? But Quincy Jones was the producer, and he says, no, that needs to that needs to be there, and it made
Yeah.
it on the. But
Yeah.
when you part, you know exactly what's going on,
Yeah.
and so I think collaboration, being able to hear and see someone's perspective,
Hmm.
just enhances what you do, you know.
Hmm. And we mentioned a lot of people right there, right? Quincy Jones. Uh, some of what you talk about, how you produce in the studio for your album, reminds me a lot of like something that Quincy Jones would do in terms of like old school executive production. Dr. Dre, where he's overseeing the whole production from every standpoint and kind of directing that whole thing. And to me, that's I think, just like we talk about technology, we have this debate between producers and beat makers now.
Mm,
Who's a real producer versus who's just sitting there and putting
mm,
together these syncopated beats. And to me, I think you're the perfect person to talk to about um, that kind of dynamic from old school music to the new school music. Um, it's more of like jazz, hip hop, and I know you know jazz and hip hop.
Mhm.
Um, Kind of talk about the importance, especially now, of jazz in the culture as we know it, and a little bit of the future of music post hip hop era. Like we're in hip hop, but you know.
Yeah, jazz is important, period, because it's the one and true American art form, is what we can claim. Everything else comes from somewhere else. When you think of fashion, when you think of architecture, when you think of painting and sculptures, that comes from other countries. But jazz music was, you know, created here by us.
Right.
And
By
so that
us.
that that that's why it's important. I mean, uh, and it's interesting because years back in the 40s and 50s, jazz music was popular music.
hmm
People
hmm
dances. They went out to listen to uh, Chick Webb and Duke Ellington.
Yeah.
New York. They had the big bands. People would go out to dance. It was popular music,
Yeah.
and then of course you cycle through time, and something else gets popular and something else gets popular. But jazz is the foundation. I tell young people, I said, yeah, you have Beyonce and everybody else, but jazz music is like the grandfather or the great grandfather to all the days. Um, so that's why it's important, and it's great to see some of the hip hop people kind of give reference to
hmm
jazz.
hmm
One I think of that was really popular in the '90s is Gangstar.
hmm
Gangstar uh, combined a lot of you know iconic jazz riffs in their music.
Yep.
Uh, Another group that was real popular, Us Three, back in the day.
Yep.
Um, Gosh, there was another group. It was two guys and Cool Like That. What was the group that sang Cool Like That?
I'm cool like that. I'm cool
And
like that. Ah,
they, that group, that trio, they
yeah.
incorporate a lot of jazz music.
Yeah.
And
Far Side.
how
Uh,
far was in
yeah.
so so I'm glad that people that are in hip hop kind of recognize that
Yeah.
jazz is is the basis for everything uh, else that we consider popular today.
Yeah.
So I think the future. I think there's somewhat of a renaissance and a celebration of jazz music now, because it is what they call a thinking man's music.
Mhm.
It's not just three chords.
Right.
It's very uh, it can be very complicated, and even simplest things are the in jazz music are the hardest things to play. So I think now, especially when you have folks like uh, Wynton Marsalis, who's this ambassador, world ambassador for jazz, and creating uh, these outlets for young people to perform and celebrate the music. I think is wonderful, and we have an opportunity when we go into the schools. We talk about jazz music, and we talk about why it's important for them to get on their phone and Google Duke Ellington and Google Ella Fitzgerald and Google Miles Davis and Google Louis Armstrong. Because those individuals were at the forefront of this music that's was created, in our country, and is the one true art form. So,
Mhm.
I'm very um, optimistic that people are going to continue to kind of celebrate the music, and the younger generation is like, "Ooh, let me see what this is all about."
Mhm.
I remember when I was in high school, and I grew up in church, so I wasn't really allowed to listen to secular music at all. But high school, and someone gave me a cassette tape. That's a long time ago. A
Yeah.
tape
A real mixtape.
of James Brown, and this
Okay.
came out like in the '60s, and I thought it was the most amazing thing I had ever heard in my life. James
He'll do
Brown.
it to you. He'll do it to you.
And this music and this music came out in the '60s, and I just it sounded so fresh and so innovative.
Hmm.
And I imagine that there are young ears that are hearing jazz music of recordings of Duke Ellington and Miles Davis,
Hmm.
like, man, this is amazing.
Uh,
Yeah, so it's not like you know those musicians, Charlie Parker, those musicians were top notch. Dizzy Gillespie, there's very few people that can that's now on the scene that can claim that they were better than these guys, because these guys were creating something out of nothing, and we have the benefit of having a template
right.
and here. But when you think about creating something out of nothing,
Right.
how how brilliant and how brilliant jazz music is.
Right.
Um, so I'm excited about the future, and we're doing our part when we go into the public schools to talk about jazz music. We'll play something that they know. Okay, we'll play some Beyonce. We'll play
Yeah.
some Lil Yachty for you. But I said, but that music is easy. I said,
Yeah.
I said, hear about these guys,
Yeah.
and so it's great. It's I'm
So
optimistic.
so with the public schools and things like that, is that something of a passion outside of just performing music, where you feel like a part of your purpose is keeping jazz alive, whatever the case is? What do you feel your purpose is in doing?
Yeah, yeah, I definitely feel that's part of it. Uh, 2 years ago, there's an organization in Southeast Arkansas called Sea Arts, and it's the arts in the public schools, and this organization services the 17 schools in the Delta region. So Monticello, Dumas, Lake Village, uh, Eudora, uh, Warren. So you service that area. And these are mainly rural schools that don't necessarily have an opportunity to hear this type of music on consistently. So we're part of the CR roster. So each year we go into the schools and we do a concert. And one goal is to get kids excited about playing in the band, you
Hmm.
know, and showing them the band is cool and band is a viable uh, source to make a living. But the other part is to kind of educate them on, of course, we're going to play music that but we're going to play some stuff that you don't know. And if you don't know, to try and uh, push a button or intrigue them enough to go home and learn about, okay, that Rodney guy was talking about Duke Ellington. Who
Hmm.
is Duke? Let me go and read about him. And so to spark an interest, at the very least, to kind of learn something outside of the box, because everybody knows who Beyonce is. Everyone knows in school who Lil Yachty is. Everyone knows uh, who Drake is. But learn about this guy, learn about this.
Nation.
Yeah. So um, so that's, one thing I really enjoy. And those concerts are very moving. They're the kids are invested. Uh, and and we've definitely had some principals and teachers, comment or come back later to say that was the best assembly we've ever had.
Hmm.
Um, I had the mayor of one city
Hmm.
call me because his granddaughter was in the kindergarten class that
Hmm.
we played. and his kindergarten came home and was just talking. We had a band and we did this and we sang and so it makes an impact and
Yeah.
kids really like that. You know, I remember when the high school kids came to my school and read to us and was promoting non-smoking. You know, I
Yeah. Say no to drugs. Just say no.
second and third grade, but I remember that. So
Mhm.
kids remember that, and so you want to. I think that part, the educational part, going into the school is definitely can have an impact. And I also is dual purpose is another way that if they see the name Rodney Block, maybe
Yeah.
they remember came to my school, or
Yeah.
he tells their parents, "Hey, he came to my school. That's the guy." You know.
Yeah.
So 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 I definitely want to cast a broad net. Part of my goal is to cast a broad net across the state
Hmm.
and playing music and being an ambassador for music, basically.
Yeah.
Not so much jazz. Jazz is part of that, but music in general, whether that's jazz, gospel, hip hop, R&B, because we play all of that. So
Right. And you know what? As we get closer to wrapping up, for the last question, that brings us straight to where we need to go. Where you say we do jazz, we do this, we do that. One of our mutual friends wanted me to ask you this question. She said that you had a Superman tattoo and and that you happen to have a couple of alter egos. You talked about it a little earlier. Let's talk about those.
oh man, that's crazy. So I do have a couple of alter egos. The latest one is Percival Jenkins
Right.
because, and if you never tell you definitely want to let your listeners and viewers know if you've never seen the movie Idlewild, you should watch the movie. It's basically hip hop musical, if that's the best way for me to describe it. Because it's a movie, it's acting, but it's like a musical where there's a number of musical numbers uh, throughout the movie. So Idlewild, and the title character played by Andre 3000, his name was Percival Jenkins, and
Mhm.
Percival Jenkins, the nerd piano player. His best friend was the gregarious one, outgoing one, always getting in trouble. But he was like a really nerdy guy, but he was into his music and he wrote really good music. So I really identified with his character. So Percival Jenkins is one alter ego. The other alter ego, which is my first alter ego, is a
Yeah.
black Superman.
Okay.
uh, so I do have a Superman tattoo, but Black Superman is kind of like my alter ego. It's just like when me and my musician friends get together. It's like the musicians are there to save the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Musicians, the band is there to kind of um, get the party started. Um, if something is crazy energy, the band
Yeah.
once the band playing, everything gets right. So I'm the leader of the band, Black Superman, and so that's been with me a long time.
That works great. That works great because we said earlier that they were like the Avengers of the Justice League when your band
yeah,
gets
yeah,
together. Your drummer's Batman.
yeah,
Somebody else is the
yeah,
Flash. Yeah, I hear you.
yeah. And we're all working together uh, uh, to just bring the music and as in words of your cousin Joe Crutcher before every show, he says, Rodney, let's let the rhythm hit him. I said,
Yeah.
hit
Let the rhythm hit him. Jammin' JC.
him,
Yep.
hit him. But so it's a lot of fun. Yeah, Black Superman. That's my other alter ego.
Yeah, yeah, man. So, into using the cartoons, I guess that was one of your guys back in the day.
Yeah, I like Superman. I like
Yeah.
Super. I like Batman, but I like Superman. But
Uh,
man,
I don't know what it is about me and Batman. I always liked him. I felt like Superman was just cheap.
But I tell you, you'll find this interesting. Actually, uh, a local guy, he's a rapper, Theme Music, and we actually put out a hip hop album. It's
Yeah.
called The Last Action Heroes,
Okay.
uh, with Black Superman and Theme Music.
Yeah.
So I have a hip hop album out under the name of Black Superman. It's
Okay.
called The Last Action Heroes, and
And is it streaming on platforms?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I'll send you the link so you can
Okay,
check.
that's good. That's good.
It.
Yeah.
We had a lot of fun doing that. Yeah, Black Superman. That's the other alter ego.
That's dope, man. Well, look, I don't want you to leave. When we finish, we'll talk a little bit before. But this just to say, this is courtesy of the Arkansas Black Vitality publication, and it was an honor to have you on the Humbler podcast to come spend some time with us, shed some light on what you do, and creators from this city. Um, and without further ado, if there's anything else you would like to say, that'll wrap up this session.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and we appreciate everything you guys do for the community, and the folks that are listening. Definitely come check us out. It's always family. It really is. It's about family and listening to music, and we always have a great time. So, thank you for all you do, and thanks for having me today.
All right, now appreciate it.